So, we will talk about a small single-engine plane Beechcraft Bonanza. On board the pilot Bruce Jernon there were 2 passengers, his father and a business partner. They took off from Andres Island in the Bahamas and headed northwest to the coast of Florida. It was the 4th of December, 1970. If you draw a map and draw a line connecting Bermuda, Puerto Rico, Miami, and leading back to Bermuda, what do you get? Yes, this triangle is a very sinister place, notorious for the fact that over the past few centuries alone, more than 2,000 ships and 200 aircraft have mysteriously disappeared in it, and Bruce Herman's plane has also been in his hungry embrace. It was a normal flight, which Bruce had already made dozens of times. The journey usually took about an hour and a half and no problems ever arose, as of course any mysterious phenomena. The men on board were no more worried than the rest of us during our daily commute, but this time it will be different. After all, they will have to face really inexplicable and perhaps even mysterious things. Bruce took off and began to gain altitude. Strange things started happening from the very beginning. At an altitude of about 300 meters, he noticed a small cloud ahead. Suddenly it started to grow. And this was not due to the fact that the plane was flying closer, the cloud actually increased significantly in size. Bruce had to fly through it and fly out the other side. Another mysterious cloud appeared at an altitude of 3,500 meters. It was so huge that Bruce had no choice but to fly through it too, so he concentrated, took a deep breath and the plane entered the cloud. It became dark as night around the plane, so that not a single ray of light could be seen. But it wasn't a thundercloud. And it wasn't raining. Bruce began to worry. Suddenly he saw flashes of white light. They suddenly appeared and disappeared with the speed of lightning. But our pilot knew for sure that it wasn't lightning. The flashes were so bright that they illuminated everything around them. Bruce flew for another half hour when he suddenly realized that it was the same cloud through which he had flown earlier when he began to gain altitude. But now the cloud had a cylindrical shape and the plane was right in the middle. It was more than a kilometer wide and seemed simply endless. Bruce thought he would never be able to get out of this trap again, but a minute later he saw a light at the end of the tunnel. Bruce kept the wheel straight ahead. He almost got out of this nightmare, but suddenly, inexplicable things started happening again. The walls of the cloud tunnel began to narrow, approaching the plane. One by one, navigation devices began to fail. The compass rotated by itself counterclockwise. All electronic devices were faulty. It was as if the plane was controlled by someone else or it was moving by itself inside some current. All Bruce's attempts to take control of the situation were in vain. He continued flying through this strange tunnel, determined to get out of it and survive to tell this story. The walls continued to narrow, getting narrower and already twisting like a whirlwind. Bruce didn't have any time left, he had to get out of there as soon as possible. The next 20 seconds were the most stressful of his life. But then he finally broke out of this foggy trap. As Bruce described later, when his plane left the tunnel, for about 5 seconds he felt weightless. The clouds had cleared and now the plane was flying in a grayish haze. All the men breathed a sigh of relief. Bruce immediately grabbed a walkie-talkie and contacted ground control, asking to determine his location. But when the dispatcher looked at the green screen, he just changed his face in surprise. Bruce's plane was not on the radar, as if it was completely invisible. But then the dispatcher announced that the plane was already in Miami airspace. Bruce was completely shocked. It just couldn't be true. The distance that Beechcraft had to cover was about 400 kilometers. Remember we said that the whole trip usually took about 90 minutes? But this time it took only 47 minutes to get to the destination. This model of aircraft can only cruise at a speed of about 290 kilometers per hour. As soon as you look at the numbers, anyone will immediately say that it is simply impossible physically. The dispatcher must have made a mistake. But when the clouds cleared, Bruce saw that he was really over Miami. The plane landed safely and it's time to try to solve this mystery. So what happened on that flight? Bruce checked the remaining fuel and his watch. However, after a short calculation, he got even more confused. The plane didn't use up as much fuel as it should have. Bruce could not be mistaken, he was a very experienced pilot. By the age of 20, he had already had more than 600 hours of flying time. In addition, he knew this airspace like the back of his hand, because he had flown this route countless times. All the available evidence clearly pointed to the fact that Bruce's plane somehow just skipped almost half of the way. Bruce thought about this strange incident for quite a long time and even consulted with professors and experts, but none of them could explain what happened that day. So he put forward his own theory and even wrote a book about it. Bruce came to the conclusion that it was all about that electric fog with white flashes. Others, however, have suggested that this jump in time was due to dark energy. Yes, the same dark energy, because of which our universe is expanding. This energy could bend space and time like a black hole, forming this strange tunnel. Bruce got into it by accident and he was very lucky to get out of it. That's why he ended up in Miami airspace so quickly. But dark energy is just a theory that tries to explain the inexplicable. And yet, how did Bruce manage to cover this distance in such a short time? There is still no answer to this question. But some details can still be explained. Archival records show that 84 sunspots were recorded that day, as well as a huge solar wind moving at a speed of about 700 kilometers per second. This could cause a disturbance in the Earth's magnetosphere, which revealed the failure of all the instruments and radars of the aircraft. So Bruce's version that he was in an electric fog could be true. As for strange clouds, this is a fairly common phenomenon in that area. Low and high pressure zones constantly collide there, and as a result, thunderclouds appear. Perhaps the cloud growing in front of Bruce's eyes was just two powerful intersecting air currents. However, so far no one has been able to explain how the plane flew to Miami so quickly. Well, maybe in the future the truth will become known. In the meantime, this case will be another mysterious mystery of the Bermuda Triangle. But this is far from the most shocking incident that happened there. In 1945, 5 planes disappeared at once in the Bermuda Triangle. On the 5th of December, several Navy cadet pilots conducted training flights in this area. Their main task was navigation. Ironically, they couldn't find their way back to the base and got lost. Many believe that they had run out of fuel. This was probably the cause of the incident, but the circumstances were very strange. The cadets were introduced by an experienced lieutenant who had flown more than 2,500 hours. He would never let a group of newcomers fly so far as to get lost. The incident was named Flight 19. There is still a debate about what exactly happened and how. 3 years later, a passenger plane flying to Miami from Puerto Rico disappeared in the same area. There were 29 passengers and 3 crew members on board. The weather was clear throughout the flight. But experts believe that the plane was knocked off course with a strong wind when it was about 80 kilometers off the coast of Miami. Many years later, divers found a similar plane in the water, but since it lacked some details and registration data, no one could confirm that it was the same missing plane flying to Miami. The following month, in January 1948, another plane disappeared in the Bermuda Triangle, 25 passengers and 6 crew members. They just disappeared somewhere between the Azores and Bermuda. The mystery of the disappearance of this plane, along with countless other disappearances, remains unsolved.